The alarm rang through every corridor of the UESS Indomitable. Commander Deho ran toward the bridge, his heart pounding in his chest. He had been a ship captain for 7 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The Crithian Empire had finally come to Earth. Through the massive viewing screen on the bridge, Deho saw them. 300 alien warships hung in space like crimson droplets of blood against the black canvas of the universe. Each vessel was twice the size of Earth's largest carriers. Their hulls glowed with an eerie red light that seemed to pulse like a living heartbeat. This was the fleet that had conquered 47 star systems. This was the empire that had never lost a battle. Lieutenant Jiwan stood at her tactical station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Her face was pale, but her voice remained steady. "Commander, their weapons are charging. Energy signatures are off the scale. Each of their destroyers carries more firepower than our entire defense grid." Deho gripped the command chair. Earth's defense fleet consisted of 52 ships. They had the best technology humanity could build, the best crews, the best training. But looking at the alien armada, he knew it would not be enough. It would not even be close. "All ships, battle formation Delta." Admiral Suman's voice crackled through the communication system. The Admiral commanded the entire defense fleet from her flagship, the Defender of Earth. She was a veteran of the Mars Rebellion and the Luna skirmishes. If anyone could lead them through this, it was her. The human ships moved into position, forming a defensive shell around Earth. Deho watched as his fellow captains maneuvered their vessels. He knew many of them personally. Captain Yuna commanded the stealth ship Shadow Dancer. Sergeant Taewon led the Marine battalions aboard the assault carriers. These were good people, brave people. Many of them would die today. "Incoming transmission from the Crithian fleet," Gina called out from the communications station. She was young, barely 23, but she was the best linguist in the fleet. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Deho ordered. The viewing screen flickered. A Crithian commander appeared. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished obsidian. Its eyes glowed amber, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Humans of Earth, I am Commander Vrakosh of the Crithian Empire. Your world has been selected for integration. You will surrender your weapons, your ships, and your government. You will serve the Empire. Resistance is futile. You have 1 hour to comply." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Everyone looked at Deho, waiting for orders, waiting for hope. "Well," Jiwan said quietly, "I guess diplomacy is off the table." Before Deho could respond, the Crithian fleet opened fire. Beams of purple energy lanced through space. The first salvo struck the human defensive line. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The battle had begun. "Evasive maneuvers," Deho shouted. "Return fire." The Indomitable lurched to the side as Crithian weapons tore through the space where it had been seconds before. Human ships fired back with railguns and missiles. The projectiles streaked toward the alien fleet. But when they struck the Crithian shields, they simply dissipated like rain hitting a force field. "Their shields are too strong," Jiwan reported. "Our weapons aren't even scratching them." Across the fleet, human ships were dying. The destroyer Vigilant broke apart under sustained fire. The carrier Prometheus lost its entire starboard side. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels. Crews screaming. Captains calling for help. The sounds of good people dying. Deho watched the battle unfold with growing horror. In the first 10 minutes, humanity lost 15 ships. 15 ships and over 6,000 people. Gone, just gone. "All ships fall back to Mars orbit," Admiral Suman ordered. Her voice was strained but controlled. "We need to regroup." The retreat was chaos. Human ships fled toward Mars while Crithian vessels pursued. The aliens did not hurry. They knew they had won. They fired methodically, picking off stragglers like wolves hunting wounded deer. Deho's hands shook as he guided the Indomitable through the retreat. Around him, his crew worked frantically. Jiwan coordinated defensive fire. The helmsman dodged incoming attacks. Engineers rerouted power to the shields. Everyone doing their part. Everyone trying to survive. They reached Mars orbit with 37 ships remaining. In less than 30 minutes, humanity had lost 15 vessels and nearly a third of its defensive capability. The Crithian fleet followed at a leisurely pace, confident in their victory. "Emergency transmission from Earth Command," Gina said. "Dr. Hyeri wants to speak with Admiral Suman. She says it's urgent." Deho knew Dr. Hyeri. She led the Quantum Disruption Project, a theoretical weapons research program. He had toured her facility once. The technology she worked on was experimental, unproven. Some called it genius, others called it impossible. Minutes passed. The human fleet held position around Mars, battered and broken. Medical ships tended to the wounded. Engineers worked on damaged systems. Everyone waited. The Crethean fleet stopped just outside weapons range, a wall of red ships blocking any escape. Finally, Admiral Suman's voice returned to the fleet channel. "All captains, this is Admiral Suman. I won't lie to you. We're facing extinction. Conventional warfare cannot defeat this enemy, but Dr. Harry has presented a plan. It's dangerous. It's untested. Many of us will not survive, but it's the only chance we have." Deho listened as the Admiral explained. Dr. Harry had developed a quantum pulse device. In theory, it could cascade through the Crethean shield network, causing a chain reaction that would disable their defenses. The problem was getting close enough to deploy it. The problem was that it had never been tested at this scale. The problem was that it might not work at all. "We're calling it Operation Prometheus," the Admiral continued. "We need volunteers. Ships willing to act as bait while a strike team penetrates the enemy formation. I won't order anyone to take part. This has to be a choice." Deho looked around his bridge. He saw determination on every face. Jiwan met his eyes and nodded. The helmsman gave a thumbs up. Even young Gina straightened in her chair, ready. "Admiral," Deho said into his communicator, "the indomitable volunteers." One by one, other captains called in. 20 ships volunteered to be the bait, every ship knowing they were signing their own death warrants, but also knowing that if they did nothing, everyone would die anyway. On Earth, billions of people watched the battle through live feeds. Children held their parents. Lovers embraced. Strangers prayed together in the streets. Above them, in the cold void of space, the human fleet prepared for a final desperate gamble. Minho sat in the cockpit of his fighter, part of Ghostwing Squadron. He was 26 years old and had been flying for 5 years. He checked his weapons systems one more time. Behind him, 11 other fighters prepared to launch. Their mission was simple: get through the Crethean fleet and deliver Dr. Harry's device to the enemy command ship. Simple but not easy. Probably impossible. "Ghostwing, this is Admiral Suman," the voice came through his helmet. "You're humanity's last hope. Good luck. And thank you." Minho took a deep breath. He thought of his family and soul. His mother, his sister, his nephew who was only 3 years old. He thought of everyone on Earth counting on him. The weight of it should have crushed him. Instead, it made him angry. These aliens thought humanity would just roll over and die. They were about to learn they had made a terrible mistake. The battle for Earth was about to enter its second phase. And this time the humans had a plan. The Shadow Dancer moved through space like a ghost. Captain Yuna kept her ship's stealth systems at maximum power as she glided past the outer edge of the Crethean fleet. Her vessel was small, built for reconnaissance, not combat. One direct hit would destroy her. But right now she had a job to do. Scanning their formation, her sensor officer whispered as if the aliens might hear them through the vacuum of space. "The command ship is in the center, just like we thought. It's massive, at least 4 times larger than our biggest carrier." Yuna studied the holographic display. The Crethean fleet had arranged itself in a perfect sphere, with their command ship protected at the core. Layers upon layers of destroyers and cruisers surrounded it. Getting to that ship would require flying through a gauntlet of alien firepower. It would be suicide. "Tag the command ship as priority target," Yuna ordered. "Get me everything you can. Shield frequencies, weapon placements, weak points if they have any." While the Shadow Dancer gathered intelligence, Gina worked frantically back on the Indomitable. She had been studying the Crethean communications for hours, trying to break their encryption. Her eyes burned from staring at the screens, but she could not stop. Not when every piece of information might save lives. Finally, she found something. A pattern in their broadcasts. The Crethean ships were constantly communicating with each other, sharing data in real time, and more importantly, sharing shield power. "Commander Deho," she called out excitedly. "I think I understand how their defenses work. Their shields are networked. Every ship contributes power to every other ship. That's why they're so strong. They're not just defending themselves, they're defending each other." Deho hurried to her station. "Can we break the network?" "Maybe," Gina said. "If we could disrupt the command ship's shield generator, the cascade effect might spread through the entire fleet. like pulling one card from a house of cards. That's what Dr. Hieri's weapon is designed to do, Jiwon added, joining them. The quantum pulse device. It creates a resonance cascade. If their shields are truly networked, it could work. On Mars, in the underground bunkers, civilians huddled together. The evacuation of Luna colonies had been chaotic. Thousands of people crammed into transport ships, fleeing to the relative safety of the Martian settlements. But everyone knew that if Earth fell, Mars would be next. There was nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. A mother held her daughter close. "Will the fleet win?" the little girl asked. The mother did not answer. She could not lie to her child, but she could not tell her the truth either, so she just held her tighter and tried not to cry. Back in space, Admiral Suman gathered her captains for a final briefing. Their faces appeared on holographic screens around her command center. Some were young, some were old. All of them looked tired. All of them looked scared. But none of them looked ready to give up. "Operation Prometheus begins in 1 hour, the Admiral said. "Commander Deho, your group will engage the enemy head-on. Draw their fire. Make them think you're making a desperate last stand, because that's exactly what it will look like." Deho nodded grimly. "We'll give them everything we have." "Ghostwing Squadron will launch during the chaos," Suman continued. "Your objective is to reach the Crethean command ship and deploy the quantum device. Captain Yuna will guide you through the formation using the Shadow Dancer's stealth capabilities." Minho listened from his fighter. His hands gripped the control stick. He had flown through asteroid fields, navigated solar storms, even engaged pirate vessels in the outer colonies. But this was different. This was flying into the mouth of hell itself. "Sergeant Taewon," the Admiral addressed the Marine commander. "Your teams will launch boarding pods at designated Crethean destroyers. We need you to create chaos, sabotage their sensors, disable their communications, make them blind and confused." Taewon's scarred face showed no emotion. He had fought in ground wars across the solar system. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies up close with his bare hands. He was not afraid of Crethians. "My Marines are ready, Admiral. We'll make them bleed." "One more thing," Admiral Suman said quietly. "I want you all to know. It has been an honor serving with you. If we don't make it through this, if this is our last stand, then let's make it count. Let's show these aliens what humans are capable of. Let's show them that we don't surrender. We don't break. We fight." The captains saluted. The screen went dark. Everyone returned to their ships to prepare. On the Indomitable, Daiho walked through the corridors. He saw crew members checking weapons, saying goodbye to friends, recording final messages for loved ones. He stopped by the engineering bay where teams worked on reinforcing the ship's armor. It would not be enough, but they did it anyway. "Commander," one of the engineers said, "we all know this is probably a one-way trip. But thank you for volunteering us. Thank you for giving us a chance to fight." Daiho clasped the man's shoulder. He could not find words, so he just nodded and moved on. In the fighter bay, Minho ran through his pre-flight checks for the 3rd time. His squadron mates did the same. Kyungmi, his wingmate for 2 years, caught his eye. They had flown dozens of missions together. They had saved each other's lives more times than he could count. "See you on the other side," she said with a grin that did not quite reach her eyes. "See you on the other side," Minho echoed. Dr. Hieri watched everything from Earth Command. Banks of computers surrounded her, monitoring the quantum device that Ghostwing would carry. The theory was sound. The mathematics were perfect. But theory and reality were different things. If she had made even one mistake in her calculations, if she had overlooked even one variable, then everyone would die for nothing. Her assistant noticed her shaking hands. "Doctor, the device will work. I believe in you." "Belief isn't science," Hieri said softly, "but right now I suppose it's all we have." The hour passed too quickly. Ships moved into position. Crews made their final preparations. And then, as Earth rotated into view behind them, Admiral Suman gave the order. "All ships. Operation Prometheus is go. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us." The Indomitable led the charge. 20 human ships accelerated toward the Crethean fleet. Behind them, Mars hung in space like a red eye, watching humanity's final gamble unfold. The aliens detected the approach immediately. Their weapons powered up. Energy signatures spiked across their entire formation. They were ready. They had been waiting for this. Commander Vrakash watched from his command throne aboard the Worldbreaker. These humans were brave, he would give them that. Foolish, but brave. They charged to their deaths like animals. It was almost sad. Almost. All ships open fire, he commanded. End this quickly. Purple beams of energy lanced out from the Krithian fleet. The human ships scattered, trying to evade, but there was no real cover in space. The first volley struck 3 vessels. 2 of them exploded instantly. The third limped on, trailing atmosphere and debris. Deho gritted his teeth as the Indomitable shook from near misses. All weapons fire at will. Target their cruisers. Human railguns roared. Missiles streaked across the void. The projectiles hammered against Krithian shields, creating brilliant flashes of light but doing no real damage. It was like throwing pebbles at a tank. But that was the point. They were not trying to win. They were trying to get the aliens' attention. And it was working. The Krithian fleet concentrated their fire on the attacking human ships. More vessels exploded. More people died. But the aliens were looking the wrong way. They were focused on the obvious threat. They did not see the real danger approaching from another angle. Ghostwing launched. 12 fighters, tiny compared to the massive warships, slipped away from the battle. Captain Yuna's Shadow Dancer led them, its stealth systems hiding them from enemy sensors. They curved around the battlefield, approaching the Krithian formation from the side. Inside his cockpit, Minho watched his scanners. The enemy fleet loomed ahead, a wall of red metal and deadly weapons. Somewhere in the center of that formation was their target. Somewhere in that maze of death was their only hope. All fighters, stay tight, Yuna's voice came through his helmet. Follow my lead. When I say break, you scatter and make your run. Understood? Understood, the pilots replied in unison. The trap was set. The bait had been taken. Now came the hard part. Now came the impossible part. Now Ghostwing had to fly through hell and somehow survive long enough to deliver their weapon. Minho's finger hovered over the throttle. His heart pounded. His breath came fast, but his hands were steady. He thought about his nephew's smile. He thought about his mother's cooking. He thought about everything worth fighting for. Here we go, he whispered to himself. Time to show them what humans can do. The Indomitable's hull screamed as another Krithian blast tore through the starboard shields. Sparks erupted from control panels across the bridge. Deho held onto his command chair as the entire ship lurched sideways. Hull breach on decks 7 and 8. An engineer shouted over the alarms. Sealing emergency bulkheads. Keep us in the fight, Deho ordered. We need to hold their attention for another 5 minutes. Jiwan worked frantically at her tactical station. Her displays showed the battle in real time. The human ships were dying. The carrier Dauntless had just lost main power. The destroyer Relentless was venting atmosphere from a dozen holes. Around them, the Krithian fleet circled like sharks smelling blood. But the plan was working. The aliens were so focused on destroying the obvious threat that they had not noticed Ghostwing's approach. Not yet. Lieutenant, target that cruiser at bearing 270, Deho said. Hit them with everything we have. The Indomitable fired. Railgun rounds and missiles streaked toward the Krithian cruiser. The shots splashed harmlessly against the alien shields, but it made the enemy ship turn its attention toward them. More purple energy beams lanced out. The Indomitable twisted desperately, trying to evade. One beam caught them along the port side. The ship shuddered. Metal groaned. Systems failed. Deho felt the deck tilt beneath his feet. We've lost port thrusters, the helmsman reported. Maneuvering capability down to 40%. Do what you can, Deho said calmly, though his heart raced. Around him, his crew fought to keep their ship alive. They were good people. Brave people. People who deserved to go home. But home might be gone soon if Ghostwing failed. Across the battlefield, Sergeant Taywin's boarding pod slammed into the hull of a Krithian destroyer. The magnetic clamps engaged. His Marines immediately began cutting through the alien hull with plasma torches. Faster, Taywin barked. We're sitting ducks out here. The Krithian ship's point defense systems tracked them. Energy bolts struck near the pod. One of his Marines screamed as shrapnel tore through her suit. But the others kept working. The metal glowed white-hot. Then it gave way. Taywin led the charge inside. The Krithian interior was dark, filled with strange architecture and alien technology. But the Marines had trained for this. They moved as a unit, weapons ready. The first Krithian appeared around a corner. It was huge, 4 arms holding weapons that looked like they belonged on a tank. It roared and opened fire. Taewon dove behind cover as energy bolts tore through the corridor. One of his Marines was not fast enough. She went down, her armor melted through. "Grenades!" Taewon shouted. 3 Marines threw flashbangs around the corner. The explosions were deafening in the enclosed space. The Krathian staggered, its amber eyes blinded. Taewon rushed forward and emptied his rifle into the alien's chest. It took 15 rounds before the creature finally fell. "Move. Find their sensor array and blow it," Taewon commanded. The Marines spread through the ship, planting charges on anything that looked important. Krathian crew members tried to stop them, but humans fought with desperate fury. They knew they were already dead. They just wanted to take as many aliens with them as possible. Meanwhile, Ghostwing approached the enemy formation. Yuna's voice crackled through Minho's helmet. "Stealth systems are holding, but we're about to enter their defensive perimeter. Once we cross that line, they'll detect us. Everyone ready?" 11 pilots confirmed. Minho checked his weapons one last time. The quantum device sat in a special hardened pod beneath his fighter. It was small, barely larger than a briefcase, but it supposedly contained enough destructive potential to cripple an entire fleet. He hoped Dr. Hyeri knew what she was doing. "Contact in 3, 2, 1. Now?" Yuna called out. The fighters crossed into the Krathian defensive zone. Alarms immediately blared on the alien ships. They had been detected. "Break! Break! Break!" Yuna shouted. The 12 fighters scattered in different directions. Krathian point defense systems opened fire. The space around them lit up with energy bolts and tracking lasers. It was like flying through a thunderstorm made of death. Minho threw his fighter into a hard roll. Energy bolts passed so close he could see them through his canopy. His wingmate Kyungmi flew parallel to him, both of them weaving through the incoming fire. "Ghost 5 is hit," a voice screamed over the radio. Minho glanced at his scanner. One of the fighters exploded in a ball of flame. "Ghost 7, I'm losing engines," another pilot called out. Seconds later, that fighter went dark too. "Stay focused," Yuna commanded. "The target is dead ahead. We're almost there." But the Krathians were not making it easy. A destroyer moved to block their path. Its weapons charged. Kyungmi saw it first. She made a split-second decision. "Minho, go," she shouted. "I'll clear the way." "No, wait," Minho called back, but she was already committed. Kyungmi accelerated directly toward the destroyer. The Krathian ship fired. She dodged the first volley, then the second. But the third caught her. Her fighter erupted in flames. But her sacrifice gave Minho the opening he needed. He shot through the gap, racing toward the command ship. "Kyungmi!" He screamed, but there was no response. She was gone. Another friend lost. Another person who would never go home. Anger flooded through him. Rage at these aliens who thought they could just take everything from humanity. Rage at the universe for being so cruel. He channeled that anger into focus. His hands moved with precision on the controls. His fighter danced through the defensive fire. 2 more Ghostwing fighters exploded. Then another. They were down to 7 now. 7 fighters out of 12. The Worldbreaker loomed ahead, massive and terrible. Its hull was covered in weapons, all of them tracking the human fighters. On the Indomitable, Jiwon suddenly shouted, "Commander, enemy cruiser is targeting us. They're charging their main cannon." Daiho looked at the tactical display. A Krathian cruiser had positioned itself perfectly. Its main weapon was powering up, enough energy to vaporize the Indomitable in a single shot. There was no time to evade, no time to bring up shields. They were about to die. "It's been an honor, everyone," Daiho said quietly. The cruiser fired. A massive beam of purple energy lanced out, but at the last second, the destroyer Valiant threw itself into the path. The beam struck the Valiant broadside. The entire ship exploded in a blinding flash. "Valiant just saved us," Jiwon said, her voice breaking. "They're gone. They're all gone." Daiho closed his eyes briefly. Captain Soman had commanded the Valiant. She had 2 sons in the academy. She had talked about retiring next year. Now she was atoms scattered across space. "Make it count," he whispered. "Everyone who's died today, make it count." Ghostwing was now within attack range of the Worldbreaker. Minho's scanner showed the command ship's shield generator, exactly where Yuna's reconnaissance had indicated. But the Krathian point defense was overwhelming. Energy bolts filled the space around them like a solid wall. "Ghost 9 is down," someone called. "Ghost 11, my controls are shot. I'm ejecting." They were down to 5 fighters now. 5 out of 12. Minho's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. His hands sweated inside his flight gloves. But he could not stop. He would not stop. The Worldbreaker's shields glowed brighter. The aliens were diverting power to protect their command ship. Minho armed the quantum device. Dr. Hieri's voice came through on a private channel from Earth Command. Minho, you need to deliver the device directly into the shield generator housing, she said urgently. Dropping it anywhere else won't work. It needs to be inside the generator itself. That's suicide, Minho replied. I'll have to fly right into their shields. I know, Dr. Hieri said softly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Minho looked at his scanner. The shield generator was a small target, protected by multiple layers of energy barriers. To get the device inside, he would have to fly through those barriers. His fighter would be torn apart. He would die. But if he did not do it, everyone on Earth would die instead. He thought about his nephew, about his sister, about all the people counting on him. He thought about Kyungmi and how she had sacrificed herself to give him this chance. He could not waste it. Ghost Wing, this is Ghost 1, he said into his radio. Cover me. I'm making the run. Negative, Yuna shouted. It's too dangerous. That's the job, Minho replied. He pushed his throttle to maximum. It's been an honor flying with you all. His fighter shot forward like a bullet. The Crethean point defense systems all locked onto him. Energy bolts converged from every direction. His shields flared and died. Alarms screamed in his cockpit. Systems failed one by one, but he did not slow down. The Worldbreaker's shields loomed ahead. Minho aimed for the shield generator housing. He could see the pulsing energy core inside, protected by shimmering barriers. It was like flying into the sun. His cockpit started to melt. Heat seared his skin. At the last possible second, Minho released the quantum device. The pod shot forward, penetrating the shields and slammed directly into the generator housing. Then Minho pulled up hard, trying to escape. He almost made it. A Crethean energy bolt caught his fighter's tail. The rear half of his vessel exploded. Minho's cockpit spun out of control, tumbling through space. His vision faded. Everything went dark. But the quantum device was in place. Dr. Hieri's weapon sat inside the Crethean shield generator, counting down its final seconds before activation. The humans had delivered their payload. Now came the moment of truth. Now they would learn if their desperate gamble had worked. Commander Vrakosh noticed nothing wrong. His shields were still up. His weapons still fired. The humans were dying exactly as expected. Victory was assured. He had no idea that everything was about to change. 3 seconds passed. On Earth, Dr. Hieri watched her displays with tears streaming down her face. The quantum device should have activated by now. The readings showed nothing. No cascade, no pulse, nothing. It didn't work, she whispered. Oh God, it didn't work. Her assistant stared at the screens in horror. They had sent all those people to die for a weapon that failed. Minho was gone for nothing. Kyungmi was gone for nothing. Everyone who had sacrificed themselves had died for nothing. Then something changed. A tiny fluctuation appeared on the sensors. Just a ripple, barely detectable. But it was there. Growing. Expanding. The quantum resonance was building, slower than predicted, but building nonetheless. Wait. Dr. Hieri breathed. Wait, it's working. It's working. On the Worldbreaker, Commander Vrakosh noticed his shields flicker. Just for a moment. Then they stabilized. He frowned. That was unusual. His shields never flickered. Never. Engineering report, he commanded. Unknown anomaly in the shield generator, a technician replied. Running diagnostics now. Then the shields flickered again. Longer this time. And when they came back up, they were weaker. The energy readings dropped by 5%. Then 10%. Then 20%. What is happening? Vrakosh roared. The technician's voice filled with panic. The generator! Something is causing a resonance cascade. The quantum field is collapsing. The Worldbreaker's shields failed completely. For the first time in its existence, the massive command ship hung in space without protection. And because the Crethean shield network connected all their vessels, the cascade spread. Like dominoes falling, shield after shield failed across the alien fleet. Destroyers lost their defenses. Cruisers went dark. Carriers hung exposed. In seconds, 300 warships became vulnerable. On the Indomitable's bridge, G1 screamed with joy. Their shields are down. All of them. The shields are down. Daiho could hardly believe what he was seeing. The red glow around the Crethean ships flickered and died. The energy barriers that had made them invincible simply vanished. They were exposed. They were vulnerable. Admiral Suman's voice roared across the fleet channel. All ships. Full offensive! Hit them now! Hit them with everything! The battered human fleet surged forward. Ships that had been retreating suddenly reversed course. Weapons that had been ineffective suddenly found their marks. Railgun rounds smashed through Krathian hulls. Missiles penetrated deep into alien vessels and exploded from within. The Indomitable, barely holding together, launched its remaining munitions. G1 targeted the cruiser that had nearly killed them. The missiles flew true. They struck the Krathian ship's engine section. Secondary explosions rippled through the alien vessel. It broke apart, venting atmosphere and bodies into space. Target destroyed, G1 shouted. Moving to next target. Across the battlefield, the tide turned with stunning speed. Krathian ships that had seemed unstoppable minutes ago were now dying by the dozens. Human vessels pressed their advantage ruthlessly. There was no mercy, no hesitation, just cold, calculated vengeance. Sergeant Tewin's Marines had planted their charges throughout the Krathian destroyer. He watched through a viewport as human ships began winning the battle outside. Blow the charges, now! The explosions tore through the alien ship. Critical systems failed. The destroyer's weapons went offline. Its engines sputtered and died. Tewin and his Marines rushed back to their boarding pod, fighting past dying Krathians. They launched just as the destroyer began to break apart, but Taiwan was not done. There's a Krathian cruiser nearby, he said. Its weapons are still active. Can we reach it? His pilot looked at him like he was insane. Sergeant, we're barely alive as it is. Then let's die making a difference, Tewin replied. Take us to that cruiser. The boarding pod changed course, heading for another target. Inside, the Marines checked their weapons and prepared for another fight. They were exhausted. Many were wounded. But they were also angry. Angry at an enemy that had thought conquering Earth would be easy. On the Worldbreaker, Commander Vrakosh finally understood what had happened. The humans had done something impossible. They had turned the Krathian Empire's greatest strength into a fatal weakness. The networked shields that made them invincible had become the mechanism of their defeat. Get our shields back online, he ordered desperately. Reroute power from weapons if necessary. But it was too late. Human ships surrounded the Worldbreaker. They fired from every direction. Railgun rounds hammered the command ship's hull. Missiles found vulnerable points. The massive vessel that had conquered star systems began to die. Vrakosh watched his fleet being destroyed on the tactical displays. Ships were exploding everywhere. His forces were trying to retreat, but the humans hunted them down. They showed no mercy. They fought like the humans were the predators and the Krathians were the prey. How had this happened? How had these weak creatures turned the battle so completely? Somewhere in the debris field, Minho's damaged cockpit tumbled through space. Inside, he was unconscious, barely alive. His suit's emergency systems kept him breathing, but he was fading fast. He would die in minutes if no one found him, but Ghostwing had not forgotten their leader. The surviving fighters searched through the chaos. One of them, Ghost 4, detected Minho's emergency beacon. The pilot maneuvered close, extended a rescue tether, and caught the drifting cockpit. Got him, Ghost 4 called. He's alive. Barely, but alive. The fighter carried Minho's cockpit toward a human medical ship. Every second counted. The pilot pushed her engines beyond safe limits, racing against time. Behind her, the battle continued to rage, but she ignored it. She had one job now. Get Minho to safety. On the Indomitable, Deho watched as the Worldbreaker tried to turn and run. The massive command ship's engines fired, attempting to break away from the battle, but Captain Yuna's Shadow Dancer appeared from nowhere, its stealth systems disengaging. Not today, Yuna said coldly. The Shadow Dancer was small. It carried only light weapons. Under normal circumstances, it could never harm a ship like the Worldbreaker. But these were not normal circumstances. The Krathian command ship had no shields, and Yuna knew exactly where to strike. She aimed for the Worldbreaker's engine cores and fired everything she had. Torpedoes, missiles, even her railguns. Every weapon on her small ship launched simultaneously. The ordnance struck the engines in a concentrated barrage. The Worldbreaker's power plant overloaded. Energy feedback cascaded through the ship's systems. Explosions erupted along its length. The massive vessel shuddered and began to break apart. For everyone we lost, Yuna whispered. But the Worldbreaker's death throes were dangerous. It spun out of control, its bulk threatening to collide with the Indomitable. Deho saw it coming. His ship was too damaged to evade quickly enough. They were going to be hit. Then Yuna did something crazy. She flew the Shadow Dancer directly at the Worldbreaker's bridge section. She fired her thrusters at maximum, pushing against the massive ship trying to change its trajectory. It was like an insect trying to move a mountain. But it worked. Just barely. The Worldbreaker's course shifted. It missed the Indomitable by meters. But the effort cost Yuna everything. The Shadow Dancer's hull crumpled from the stress. Her engines exploded. The small ship broke apart.
"Yuna!" Deho shouted.
"Yuna, respond!" But there was no answer. The Shadow Dancer was gone. Captain Yuna had made her final sacrifice. The Worldbreaker continued breaking apart. Secondary explosions tore through it. Krathian crew members ejected in escape pods trying to flee the dying ship. And then, in a final massive detonation, the command ship exploded. The blast lit up space like a second sun. Commander Vrakosh died with his ship. The alien commander who had conquered dozens of worlds. The warrior who had never known defeat. In the end, he learned that humans did not surrender. They fought. And when they fought to win. With their command ship destroyed and their shields gone, the Krathian fleet fell apart. Ships tried to flee in every direction, but the human forces pursued them relentlessly. Admiral Suman coordinated the hunt with cold efficiency. Her orders were clear. No quarter, no mercy. Make them pay for every human life lost. Of the 300 Krathian vessels that had entered the Sol system, only 47 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. The greatest fleet the Krathian Empire had ever assembled had been shattered by a force 1/6 its size. On Earth, people watched the battle's conclusion through live feeds. For a moment, there was silence. Then the celebrations began. People poured into the streets crying with joy and relief. They had survived. Against all odds, humanity had won. But in space, the survivors knew the truth. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. 38 of 52 human ships were destroyed or crippled. 14,000 people were dead. Brave people, good people, people with families and dreams and lives ahead of them. In the Indomitable's medical bay, medics worked frantically on the wounded. Commander Deho had been injured when his bridge took another hit near the battle's end. He lay on a stretcher, watching the ceiling, feeling empty despite the victory. Admiral Suman's voice came through the ship's intercom. "All ships, this is Admiral Suman. We have won. Earth is safe. I know we all lost friends today, family, people we loved. The price of victory was high. But we paid it. And in doing so, we showed the galaxy what humans are capable of. They came to conquer us. We sent them running. This is not the end. This is just the beginning." Suman out. In the medical ship, doctors managed to save Minho's life. He woke up 2 days later, groggy and confused. When they told him what he had accomplished, he just closed his eyes. He thought about Kyungmi, about all the pilots from Ghostwing who had not made it. He wondered if he deserved to survive when so many others had died. But he had survived, and that meant he had a responsibility. To remember them, to honor them, to make sure their sacrifices meant something. The battle for Earth was over. Humanity had won, but the war had just begun. The Krathian ships that escaped the Sol system fled in terror. They jumped to hyperspace without formation, without coordination, just running as fast as their engines could carry them. For the first time in their empire's history, they had been defeated. Badly defeated. Humiliatingly defeated, Admiral Suman did not let them escape easily. Human pursuit squadrons chased the fleeing aliens, picking them off one by one. The hunters had become the hunted. Ships that had entered the solar system with arrogance left it as broken survivors, if they left at all. In the debris field around Mars, recovery teams searched for survivors. They found escape pods from both sides. The human survivors were treated as heroes. The Krathian prisoners were secured under heavy guard. Earth now had living aliens to study, to learn from, to understand. Sergeant Taewon supervised the prisoner operations. He stood watching as Krathian soldiers were led into holding cells. These aliens had seemed invincible during the battle. Now they looked small and defeated. One of them met Taewon's eyes. The alien seemed confused, as if it could not understand how it had lost. "You underestimated us," Taewon said simply. "That was your mistake." Across human space, the news spread like wildfire. Earth had defeated the Krathian Empire. Not just survived, but won. Truly won. Colonies throughout the solar system celebrated. Mars, Luna, the asteroid stations, even the distant outposts near Jupiter's moons. Humanity had proven itself, but the military leadership knew better than to celebrate too much. Admiral Suman gathered what remained of her command staff 3 days after the battle. They met in a damaged conference room aboard the Defender of Earth. The walls still showed blast marks. Some of the chairs were empty, their former occupants dead. "We won the battle," Suman said, her voice tired. "But we need to prepare for war. The Krathian Empire will respond. They'll send another fleet, bigger than the first. We cannot let our guard down." Commander Deho attended the meeting from a medical wheelchair. His injuries would heal, but it would take time. "We also have an opportunity," he said. "We captured Krathian ships. We have their technology. We can study it, reverse engineer it, improve our own vessels." "Already in progress," Dr. Harry reported. She looked exhausted but satisfied. Her quantum pulse weapon had worked, even if it had cost so many lives. "We're analyzing their shield generators, their weapons, their engines. Within 6 months, we can upgrade the entire fleet." "We don't have 6 months," Jiwon added. She had been promoted to commander after the battle, though she did not feel like celebrating. Too many friends had died. "Intelligence suggests the Krathians will retaliate within weeks. We need to be ready." Lieutenant Gina, also promoted after her crucial role in understanding the alien communications, spoke up. "We should consider going on the offensive. We know where some of their colony worlds are." "We could strike first." The room fell silent. The idea of humans launching attacks seemed strange. Earth had always been defensive, reactive. But Gina had a point. The best defense might be a good offense. News of Earth's victory spread beyond human space. The Galactic Council, a coalition of dozens of alien species, had watched the battle with interest. They had assumed the Krathians would conquer Earth easily. Every species the Krathians had attacked before had fallen quickly. But humans had fought differently. A council delegation arrived in orbit 2 weeks after the battle. They came in peace, offering trade agreements and diplomatic relations. Admiral Suman met with them aboard a space station. The lead delegate was from a species called the Viridians, tall beings with blue skin and 3 eyes. "We are impressed," the delegate said. "The Krathian Empire has conquered 47 systems. You are the first to defeat them. The Council wishes to discuss an alliance." "Where was the Council when the Krathians attacked us?" Suman asked coldly. "We fought alone. We died alone. Now that we've won, suddenly you want to be friends?" The Viridian looked uncomfortable. "The Council has rules. We do not interfere in conflicts unless both sides request mediation." "Then your rules are useless," Suman replied. "But we will discuss trade. We need resources to rebuild. We need information about the galaxy. If you can provide those things, we can talk." Back on Earth, humanity began to rebuild. The orbital shipyards worked around the clock, constructing new vessels incorporating Krathian technology. Engineers studied the captured alien ships, learning their secrets. Scientists analyzed their weapons and shields, finding ways to improve them. Minho recovered from his injuries, though the scars would never fully heal. He spent time with his family in Seoul, trying to process everything that had happened. His nephew asked him what space was like. Minho smiled sadly and said it was beautiful and terrible all at once, but he could not stay home for long. The military needed experienced pilots. Ghostwing was being reformed, with new fighters and new technology. Minho accepted a position as squadron leader. He owed it to Kyungmi and the others who had died. He would train the next generation of pilots to be even better. Sergeant Taewon also stayed in service. He took charge of training new Marine units. The boarding tactics he had developed during the battle became standard doctrine. Future Marines would learn from his experience, his brutality, his effectiveness. 6 months after the battle, the human fleet had been transformed. New ships incorporated Krathian shield technology and human weapons. The quantum pulse devices were now standard equipment. Dr. Hayeri had refined the design, making it more reliable and more powerful. Admiral Suman, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, addressed the rebuilt fleet. Deho stood beside her, fully healed and now in command of the new carrier Indomitable II. Jiwon served as his executive officer. Gina coordinated communications across the entire fleet. "We did not ask for this war," Suman told her forces. "But the Krathians brought it to us. They thought we were weak. They thought we would surrender. They learned otherwise. Now we have a choice. We can wait for them to attack again, or we can take the fight to them. The fleet captains voted unanimously. They would go on the offensive. Intelligence reports indicated that the Krethian Empire had a major military base in the Kaltor system, 3 weeks away by hyperspace. The base coordinated operations across a dozen conquered worlds. If humans could destroy it, they would cripple Krethian power in the region. The fleet departed Earth with 70 ships. Not all were new. Some were repaired survivors from the original battle, but all were improved, upgraded, and crewed by people who knew how to fight. They traveled through hyperspace in complete radio silence. No communications that might be intercepted. No signals that might give away their position. They would arrive at Kaltor as a surprise, just like the Krethians had arrived at Earth. 3 weeks later, they emerged from hyperspace near the Kaltor system. The Krethian base hung in orbit around a green planet. Dozens of alien ships patrolled the area. They had not expected an attack. They were unprepared. All ships, this is Supreme Commander Suman. The Admiral's voice carried across the fleet. Remember Earth, remember everyone we lost. Now let's show them what happens when you attack humanity. The human fleet opened fire. Quantum pulse weapons struck the Krethian shields, collapsing them immediately. Human missiles and railguns followed, tearing into exposed alien hulls. The Krethians scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The surprise was complete. Minho led Ghostwing through the chaos. His new fighter was faster than his old one, more maneuverable, better armed. He had learned from the battle for Earth. So had his pilots. They flew with precision and ruthless efficiency. Ghostwing, target those defense platforms, Minho ordered. Clear a path for the boarding teams. The fighters swooped in, destroying the automated defenses around the Krethian base. Behind them, Taywin's Marines launched in assault pods. They hit the base hard, fighting through corridors and compartments. The Krethians tried to resist, but humans had learned their tactics. The Marines knew how to fight them now. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the Krethian base was destroyed. 23 alien ships were gone. The survivors fled, carrying news of humanity's attack back to their empire. But the human fleet was not done. They had learned the locations of other Krethian installations from captured data. Over the next 6 months, they struck again and again. Always unexpected, always devastating. The humans fought like they had learned from predators. On the Krethian homeworld, far from Earth, the Empire's High Council met in emergency session. Reports from the front were alarming. These humans were not like other species. Other conquered races had given up after one defeat. Humans seemed to get more dangerous after every battle. We attacked prey, one counselor said grimly. But we found hunters instead. They turned our technology against us, another added. Our shields, our communications, everything we thought made us strong became our weakness. How do we stop them? A third counselor asked. The room fell silent. No one had an answer. The Krethian Empire had conquered through overwhelming force and superior technology. But humans had matched their technology and exceeded their determination. How did you fight an enemy that refused to lose? A year after the battle for Earth, the human fleet liberated its first alien world. The planet Taraxis had been under Krethian rule for 15 years. Its native species had been enslaved, forced to mine resources for the Empire. When human ships arrived in orbit, the Krethians fled without fighting. The Taraxians could hardly believe it. For years they had thought the Krethians were unstoppable. Now humans, a species no one had heard of a year ago, had driven the Empire away. Taraxis declared itself independent and allied with Earth. Other conquered worlds began to hope. If humans could win, maybe they could be free too. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. The Krethian Empire, once feared by everyone, was now being pushed back. Human fleets operated deep in alien space. Every battle brought new victories. Every victory encouraged more species to rebel against their Krethian masters. On Earth, people followed the news with pride. They had gone from victims to victors, from prey to predators. The species that had almost been conquered was now liberating others. It was a transformation no one had expected, but everyone embraced. Admiral Suman stood on the bridge of the Defender of Earth looking at a star map. Red markers showed Krethian territory. It had shrunk considerably over the past year. Blue markers showed human-liberated worlds. They were spreading across the map like a tide. "What are you thinking?" Deho asked, joining her. "I'm thinking about the day the Krethians arrived at Earth," Suman said. How hopeless everything seemed. How certain I was that we would lose. And now look at us. We're winning a war that everyone said was impossible. We learned something important that day, Deho replied. We learned that humans don't break. We bend, we adapt, we overcome. That's our real strength. Not our weapons or our ships. Our refusal to give up. Somewhere in deep space, a Creathian patrol encountered a human scout ship. The aliens prepared to attack. But then their commander remembered the reports. Remembered how every fight with humans cost more than it gained. Remembered that these creatures fought like demons when threatened. The Creathian patrol turned and fled without firing a shot. The human scout continued on its mission unmolested. The war would continue for years. There would be more battles, more losses, more sacrifices. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had proven itself. The species that had almost been exterminated in a single day had become one of the most formidable powers in the galaxy. And they had done it not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through pure stubborn refusal to lose. When the Creathians had brought doom to Earth, humans had turned it back on them. They had shown the galaxy a simple truth that everyone now understood. You can attack humans. You can threaten them. You can even hurt them badly, but you cannot break them. And if you try, you will learn the hard way what happens when humanity decides to fight back. The prey had become the predator, and the galaxy would never be the same.